You're listening to Consulting Logistics, presented by Freight Plus. I'm your host, Kyle McNaught. Thanks for checking us out. It's an SCU30 day, Supply Chain Under 30, our series within the consulting logistics where we talk to supply chain professionals under the age of 30 about their journey. And then also what excites them, what's super fun, what do they find interesting about working the supply chain. It really is just to help kind of showcase the different paths people can take. And this is a fun one because I've got an international supply chain person joining the show today. Dhairya Patel is going to join us, and he's a blast. Talking to him before this interview is so much fun. He even in his bio on LinkedIn says, "I love interacting with diverse people, being a part of a global community, and understanding their perspectives and passion." So, without further ado, Dhairya, how's it going? I am so scared that I butchered your name again, even though this is the 17th time I've asked you this. How's it going?
Hi, Kyle. Thanks for inviting me on the show. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, man, I'm so excited. First of all, have to throw all the gratitude in the world because it is a huge time difference that you managed to find, you were willing to do for me, which it should have been the opposite. I should have had to work for you. I just, my bad, but I thank you so much for joining the show today. Um, let's jump into it. I mean, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? Where are you from, first of all? Because there's a time difference for a reason.
Yes. I am basically from India, and from the west part of the India, there is a state called Gujarat. And if I were to describe Gujarat, then Gujarat hosts the tallest statue in the world, as well as the largest capacity cricket stadium. So, like, we are renowned for those two landmarks.
Oh, so you a big cricket fan, like all that type of stuff? Like,
Yes.
yeah.
So it's
How,
like a country of a billion people, but like a million dreams of like millions of followers in the cricket. So like we're a cricket loving nation.
oh, absolutely. Now, how big's that stadium? I mean, I know we're going away from you immediately, but like, so in America, we got like these 100,000, 120,000 stadiums. How big's this cricket stadium?
It's like a seating capacity of around 1,55,000 people at the same time.
Oh my God, what's the energy like in those? Like, what's like,
Awesome. Yeah.
like, how far away do you live from this? Like,
So it's like almost 90 kilometers from the stadium.
oh, okay. So you get to go to games all the time and get to see all that stuff?
Yeah, so like recently, just the first game, the inaugural game, just happened like in this week. Like so, like we have just started with the stadium. Like it was under construction for a while.
Oh wow! Oh wow! So this was like it just happened. Like this stadium hasn't been
Yes,
around. Oh, okay. How was that first game?
awesome. Like to the irony, it was a test match, and a 5-day test match wrapped up in 2 days. So
Oh, jeez, man. Yeah, cricket's one of those. It's like a fun game. Like it's like there's in America we're not like that well versed in it, but like watching it, getting the energy of all that stuff, and it's also just the passion of the crowd. So it's got to be fun. So enough of cricket. I mean, let's transition a little bit. What was it like, kind of growing up in your state and stuff like that? What were you interested in? Were you kind of a sports person? Were you more education? Kind of what were your hobbies growing up?
yeah. As a single child of the parents, so like I was like raised very fondly and. I was not more of a sports person. Like cricket was some of those things that come inherently as an Indian, but I had a more of an education, like a studious person. So I had a strong hold over my mathematics. That's why, like, I try to engage in debates and engage in regular mathematics sessions, and I also mentor many students in the mathematics, my juniors. So that was something that has mathematics has been a part of my life and something that I embrace it till date.
That's awesome. Now, I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, it's like the mathematics and stuff like that. What was technology like? What did you have a smartphone growing up? Like what did you have? Like that's something that I always find interesting, especially because this is for supply chain under 30, right? So it's what did you have growing up? Because like most of the over 30 crowd didn't have a lot. Were you growing up with like the smartphone from right out the bat, or kind of what was that like?
No, no, no. So like I had my smartphone after my 10th grade. So until then, like I did not have that luxury of owning a phone, which is like the today's gen like the millennials who get like have a phone in their hand the moment they are born. So I didn't have that luxury, but I was introduced to the smartphone. mainly like after 2010 or 2011. So that's when I got my first smartphone.
Oh, what about what about like internet and stuff? I mean, did you have like access to all that? Like, kind of what was it like growing up like in India? Like, were you kind of more just, are you like America, right? Where we kind of only care about ourselves half the damn time. But what was that like? Were you kind of more globally kind of recognizing what was happening?
Yeah, so like we had a decent amount of internet connectivity, but it was majorly limited to 2G network. But since the digital revolution in India since 2014, we are getting the we if it will be you will be astonished to hear that we currently have the cheapest internet rates in the whole world. So in terms of per GB data.
I am jealous to hear that just based off of my internet bill. So that's great, and we have to. It still doesn't even freaking work. Working from home, and I'm like, great, none of this stuff works. So that's wonderful to hear. um, so your mathematics, you really don't have a lot of like you're not like into technology. You're not really into a lot of cricket, or like you're not crazy into sports. What's kind of graduating sort of that primary education? What was your plans? What were you kind of thinking you were going to go into as you kind of started to move into more of an adult life?
So, like after completing my primary education, after grade 10, we normally have two streams where we can get into. It's like not like just like not the high school concept, just as it in America, but we have a secondary education system here in India where we can either offer a science stream or a commerce stream. So, science stream is basically related to your engineering, and your commerce is related to your CA if you want to be a chartered accountant or if you want to do an MBA or a bachelor's in business administration. So as I had a strong follower mathematics and I had an inclination towards somewhat physics. So that's why I opted for like science stream. And like my path was ascertained. So a student who actually opts for science in India normally goes for engineering.
Yeah, you guys got it right. You guys didn't have dumb degrees like I do with arts and communication. I'm like, cool, graduated, paid a lot of money to be able to speak. It's wonderful. So, what was it like? I mean, what you went science because you were more just inclined, and it was sort of the path was laid out for you, or what kind of were you thinking when like you're just like, hey man, I'm good at math, so I might as well kind of take this path, or why kind of go that way?
So like I I didn't had that particular propensity like going for this particular domain, but like mechanical was something that was nearest owing to my background of mathematics, and I also didn't had that certain inclination towards coding skills. So then I like opted for mechanical as my bachelor's,
That's
and
interesting.
in
Yeah.
yeah.
No, continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So I received also a scholarship for my undergrad, but it covered like 70% of my tuition cost. So like there was also one of the reasons that like opted for mechanical engineering. Like it was a confusion by between opting between electrical and mechanical, but eventually I get forward with mechanical engineering.
That's interesting. My former life was doing a lot of like life safety codes and stuff like that. Things with the mechanical, like the building life safety and all that type of stuff. Which is, I mean, in India with just the growth and everything was a huge thing. But um, yeah, I mean, it's super interesting you went down that path. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is supply chain under 30. Like, how did that start happening? Was this in primary, kind of before you got into these kind of like more degree areas, or when did you start kind of getting to know the supply chain?
Yeah. So, supply. I was first introduced to the field of supply chain during my final year of my undergrad, where I did a thesis project under a professor who motivated me to pursue a project in the closed loop supply chain domain. So, like that was the first impression of supply chain for me, and like that was the starting point from when like I started to explore the supply chain field. And if I go down the line, then after pursuing my bachelor's, I worked with a particular capital goods company in India for certain months. But then I eventually wanted to go for my master's. So then I applied to various universities in USA, for pursuing my master's, and I got admits. From a majority of them, like I got admits from Purdue, I got admits from Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, and Texas A&M University. So the path was laid out for me. Everything was very much fixed, but then COVID happened, boom, and like it was a major setback for me personally. And but in fact, every setback brings a great opportunity. So it was an opportunity in disguise for me, and like it was the particular time period during which like I started exploring, I started delving deeper into the supply chain domain.
So your first exposure to the supply chain really was a thesis project. It wasn't like
Yes.
a class that you sort of like, oh man, this is kind of interesting. It's on a hard project that you're like, hey, this is kind of fun. Like that was when you experienced the supply chain for the first time?
Yes, like I wanted to take a completely new project like during my final year,
Right.
and like I had to take this opportunity, and God knows, like it was all laid out for me that I had to like pursue my career in the supply chain domain.
So it wasn't like there was no interest in the supply chain prior to that moment in time. See, that's an interesting thing because you think like international, kind of the global, just like your whole bio, right? Of like doing all that stuff. You'd think like, oh, maybe you would see that, but you really didn't even think about anything. Like you weren't thinking about the supply chain before all this. You were more like, hey, I'm math inclined. I'm kind of good at this. Mechanical engineering seems like I won't get shocked as much as electrical engineering, so I'll stick to that area. But like that was sort of where you got the exposure to. And then you found it interesting while working in a project. I think that's fascinating. Because a lot of people, when you're doing the project, you're like, oh God, I got to get this done with. Like, what in particular found it? Like, what did you find interesting about it? Just knowing that you were more kind of math inclined.
Yes, so like the project was in fact involving a lot of math. So it was a combination of supply chain and like doing your optimization on your paper. So you know a lot of mathematics skills. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's super interesting. I mean, especially as like the supply chain grows and gets more smarter, faster, like all those things, there is a need for math. There is these needs for kind of outside kind of intelligence. So uh, then COVID hits, and
Yes.
COVID hits, and your still plan was so you got into these kind of universities in America. Was it you were going to pursue your master's in supply chain, or were you still kind of thinking mechanical, that type of stuff?
No, so I will be pursuing my master's in industrial engineering,
Okay.
uh, like from Georgia Tech. So industrial engineering is somewhat wider field and like offers a wider scope. And eventually, like I will be going for supply chain, but that will be a part of the I like curriculum.
Interesting. So, what like COVID hits, right? Again, we all dealt with it, right? It stinks. It's the worst. How did you use that? I mean, you talk a little bit about seeing that as a kind of a blessing, right? As much as COVID could be a blessing, how did you use it? How did you kind of be able to pivot and sort of pursue a little bit more and kind of get hands-on experience, right? Because that's the big thing, getting hands-on experience when you're still in that kind of learning phase and you're not in your career phase is so vital. So how did you utilize this kind of area or this kind of quote unquote gap year?
Yes. So initially, the day COVID period was a setback for me when we went into a severe lockdown where everything like essential only the essential services were functioning. So like then I started exploring. Like I was introduced to this tool called LinkedIn. So it's like the mecca for like young professionals who want to like just make an impression and interact, like eventually opens your the channel to interact with any particular person, be it any CEO or a CFO of any particular organization. So like LinkedIn offers this exclusive power to you, and it like I started leveraging LinkedIn to my advantage, and I started taking participation in various forums, various events. So like due to COVID, there was this one thing like on a day like normally the events would actually happen in person at particular venues, and like they had a certain amount of cost involved in that, but due to COVID all of them transitioned on a virtual basis, and therefore like it opened access to almost a wide audience, and that's why like I had that opportunity while sitting in India and like getting a taste or getting a view of the event happening in Atlanta or happening in like some other city in the United States. So I can virtually interact with any particular person, build my network. And so like I started gradually building my network in the supply chain domain. I started interacting with various professionals on how this, what are the current trends in the domain, what is happening, and like how do I get into, like what things should I look forward. when I, like, as a young professional who is willing to make an entry into the supply chain domain, what are the things that should I look forward? And like, I got some of the recommendations in terms of courses that I can pursue during my gap year. And that's when, like, I started pursuing this great course called as the MIT Micro Masters in Supply Chain Management on the edX platform. So this particular course is a comprehensive course for the supply chain domain, where they had these SC5 courses, and is headed by Dr. Chris Caplis. So it provides a very insightful information for any particular young professional who wants to transition from a different career. Like, if he's working in a different domain and if he wants to come into the supply chain domain, then like this course offers a very just from the basics, and how it eventually builds upon as you progress towards the other modules. So that's how, like, I got a wide perspective on what are the current best practices in the supply chain domain, and what other methodologies are applied in an industrial setting.
See, man, there's so many paths I want to go down. I mean, first of all, you gave me one of the bigger ahas I've had of all time with this kind of COVID thing. But I mean, especially here, like, we complain like, oh, virtual is not the same. You're missing the in-person and stuff. But virtually, like, if you didn't have that opportunity, like the virtual and the need to pivot, just was so valuable. It brings a talent like you into this industry where before, like you said, it would have been cost prohibitive. You couldn't have been able to do this. A lot of stuff would have been based in location, where being able to go virtual really helped out. And it's a fascinating, like, an aha moment for me, because the whole time with COVID, it's been more of like, oh, maybe this will bring more supply chain in because of stuff like the empty shelves and the toilet paper in America. Like, did you guys experience some of that stuff in your kind of area in India? Were you guys having the supply chain issues as well? Or was that just more of an America, we're fools and we freaked out for no damn reason?
Yes, no, like, we almost had a supply of the essential goods that we needed. So, like, there were no major shortages in terms of supplies in India, because, like, it was well managed. Like,
so you guys had it well managed. So more of what you found the value was being able to, wow, everything went remote. So that meant everyone had to be able to see this stuff. So you got access to things before that, like, you wouldn't have been able to interact most of the time. Whereas in America, it was more these kids got to see, like, oh, like, like, there was no toilet paper and I wondered why. And I'm starting to learn that thing. So it's kind of cool that there's different, it's brought more people into the supply chain, especially more younger people. But at the same time,
yes.
for very different reasons. I mean, that's a fascinating thing. I also, sorry, I'm just like talking, right? This is an interview about you, so I apologize. But I want to talk a little bit more about the whole asking for help, or going out there and utilizing LinkedIn. I mean, did you find, like, what? How did you kind of jump into it? How did you start to learn who were the right people? How did you kind of get the networking? What were you doing? Were you just kind of searching, like, supply chain, or were you kind of just going in comments? Like, how did you end up finding people? And, like, how do you have the like, you just reached out, you sent them a message, or, like, how did you kind of get them to kind of interact with you?
So, like, I adopted a threefold strategy to, like, get my, like, build a LinkedIn profile, like, get a LinkedIn branding. And, like, the first thing was, like, I prepared a list of all the supply chain podcasts or supply chain live streams that happen on LinkedIn, and different organizations that do that. And, like, I try to, like, participate in those particular discussions, and, like, be a regular member of their discussions, and, like, try to interact with the people in the comments. That's how, like, I try to build visibility over me. Like, people started noticing me.
Right, your
Then the
personal
second point
brand.
is,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then
So,
before, no, hold on to the second point, but real quick, how do you overcome? I mean, you more or less did a thesis on supply chain, right? So that's kind of your knowledge. How do you overcome that kind of worry of, like, oh man, if I had a comment in here, how am I going to be able to talk? Like, I'm dealing with supply chain professionals or dealing with this stuff. How did you get past that kind of fear, or did you not? You're like, I don't have that. I'm talking to people. Like, let's go.
So, like, at first I felt I had this imposter syndrome. Like, I felt that I had a little less knowledge compared to the seasoned professionals. But then I eventually figured out, like, I interacted with some of them, and then I found that people keep track of the daily news. So there are some great resources available. Like, you have this supply chain dive newspaper, where each the industry news are tracked. So I tried to prefer the smart way and therefore I try to get updated with the latest trends. So like in the time of COVID, the major discussions were pivoted around resiliency, agility, and so those were the things that captured my attention, and therefore I try to read and like try to gain as much as knowledge related to that. And therefore, like in the initial part of the discussions, like it was mostly limited to very basic exchange of information. But then I eventually developed and like advanced my learning curve, and then I got to know like what exactly like people are talking about, and therefore like I can also share perspectives on that. And that's how like gradually, like doesn't happen at the first time, but like you gradually move on, you learn from it, and like that's how I started interacting with people and build a great strong network.
Yeah, that's genius. I mean, it doesn't happen like that, right? You can't just jump into a
Yes.
thing. It takes time. It takes you being a part of the group. What was your second phase? So that was phase one of kind of building your personal brand on LinkedIn. What was your second? Kind of what was the other part you brought to it?
So like second was like just after you finish with your discussions, and you notice the people who are like participating in discussions who are from the supply chain background. So you start noticing them, and you prepare a template based on interaction with them in the discussion, and you try to send them a personalized invite on LinkedIn, so that the person remembers you, not just sending a blank connection request, but sending them a personalized invite. Like we had this discussion, like your perspective on this particular topic was very something very intriguing to me, and I would like to connect, and if you're free, then I would also like to chat with you. So I also schedule some video sessions with certain supply chain domain experts, and that's how like I try to build much more like a two-way type of communication, and try to like understand their perspectives, and also like uh, communicate what I wanted to know and how can I learn from them.
So
So that
what
was
was
my
it?
second.
Right. Sorry, go ahead. So that was your second. Sorry, my bad.
So like the third point was like I started to build a network, and then I realized that like how do I maintain visibility, and like I thought of building a thought leadership type of my profile around my LinkedIn profile. So then I started leveraging my knowledge of supply chain and reading my daily newspapers and your content on various journals. I started to make it a habit of posting almost like bi-weekly or every 15 days on LinkedIn, where I tagged people, and I like would like to gain like tag people to comment in the comment section, and also post certain topics related to supply chain. So every week I posted some unique topic related to supply chain, and like I started receiving great response in relation to that.
Yeah, listen, people should do that's a course. People should write down everything you just did and understand that, like, you didn't do it because you had 30 years in the supply chain and you knew all this stuff. You did it because you were interested. And that's the thing
Yes.
that you need to do. Get out there, talk to people. I mean, did you find anyone who was like, dude, get away from me? Or was mainly most people were like, holy crap, like this guy is really interested in the supply chain. I'm definitely going to talk to someone who's got this type of energy coming at me.
Yeah, so like it was, I didn't receive any type of ignorance from the people, but yeah, it happens sometimes that you send 10 connection requests, and like seven of them get accepted, and you try to maintain a relationship with five of them. Like two of them might not be responsive in that context, but you need to put yourself out there, and like you need to interact with people as much as you can. So that's how it actually, as you gradually progress, you try to build a network. So that's how it works. So yeah.
So what were you doing? I mean, what was like? Okay, you're building your personal brand and stuff, but what were you trying to learn, right? Because that's one of the things. Like, you had something that you're specifically going for. Was it more learning about the work in the supply chain and kind of how that works out, or kind of what were you? What was the kind of the goal for you in this gap year? What were you trying to learn by doing all this networking?
So as I said, like during my undergrad, I didn't had that much of exposure to supply chain. So during my gap year, I made it the point that I get accustomed to all the basic concepts and of the supply chain domain, and that's why I took the MIT MicroMasters course, which actually is a very comprehensive course, because like it covers almost the first semester of MIT, and like it is equivalent to like going with a first semester of MIT. And in addition to that, like I started understanding the current trends and the applicability of the concepts which I learned in my course in the real world. And that's how like I started interacting with people, and like I started participating in forums. And like gradually, like I also did one internship in the supply chain domain. Like I got a work from home internship, and like it was particularly in the logistics domain, if I might say. And so that was one another aspect that I actually got an on hand experience for the supply chain thing.
Yeah, I mean, I heard it recently kind of described as like knowledge is great, but like you got to practice. Otherwise, the knowledge kind of goes away. So you're kind of getting that, but like I love the way you went about it, right? You got the knowledge, but then you went into communities and you're building your personal brand. So you're doing something that's super, super good for you, but you're also learning. You're hearing from people of like, hey, I just heard this in the class, but like, how do I contextualize this? And that's how you're kind of doing it. I love it, dude. And then you're getting the internships. So you're getting the practice and all that stuff. I mean, talk to me now, kind of this was just brilliant. I mean, round of applause for how you like utilized the COVID year, right? The worst kind of thing that happened. You used it amazing. So what's your plan? What's kind of the goal kind of now? Like I know we're coming to Atlanta. You're about to be in hot Atlanta. You get some chicken. You get to enjoy some some of the fun stuff. But what's kind of what's your career goal? What's your plan with what you're doing? And again, you don't need to have an answer to that. That's the best part is you kind of did a good job at really learning. And at the same time, transitions. Like you're cool at transitions. So I guess right now, Dario, what's sort of where are you going?
So like I'm very much clear that the next 2 years will be my focusing for my masters, going to Georgia Tech, pursuing my masters, and my goal is to like maximum interact with people there and try to like once again build a network on ground in Atlanta. And like it will be a great opportunity to interact with like different people, international students coming from various countries, and understanding their perspectives. Like I have seen supply chain from sitting here from India, the global supply chain, but like what these students coming from different countries, how do they experience those things? So I need to learn from that. I also want to engage in student organizations, and if I might say, like I want to also like lead or be a part of the leadership team for the organization. That's my one of my goals. And like after completing my masters, I look forward to like going working in a supply chain planning role. That's what I have this rough sketch of where I want to be. Like that might change depending upon like my gradual interest, depending upon the courses I take. But that's the rough sketch I have right now.
That's, I mean, Atlanta's gonna be a blast for you. It's a cool kind of cool town, super international, that type of stuff. And I mean, we've had people on the show from Atlanta, tons of stuff. So we'll definitely get you in contact. And same with anyone out there. Like, definitely get in touch with you, dude. I mean, you're gonna kill it. It's gonna be so much fun. I'm excited to hear kind of more of your journey as you continue with all this stuff. Let's kind of transition into sort of wrapping up and stuff. What kind of advice would you have for someone who's looking to get into supply chain? I mean, first off, the main piece of advice is do what the hell you did during COVID, right? Like, get out there. You're going to need to learn. You want to connect and you want to experience. So, I mean, I didn't mean to take that out of your things, but what's some other stuff? Like, what's some advice you'd have? Why the supply chain? If I'm someone under the age of 30, I kind of was maybe pursuing a mechanical engineering. Why the supply chain?
Basically it's like a supply chain is a cross functional role. So like millennials want to go out there. Like at the age of 25, millennials have this inherent goal, like I want to make and change the world. So like supply chain offers an exciting opportunity for you, because you will have a blend of being on the ground plus supply chain analyst roles will help you to like churn out your data, do the analysis for your data, and like give you actionable insights. So like you will be a part of the decision making process. You will in fact be like communicating to the top management what you need to do. So like this supply chain will give you the opportunity, will give you the platform in order to make a mark for yourself in the industry.
No, I love it. It's like I think I had that same kind of epiphany a little while ago too. Of like, man, like millennials, Gen Z, they all talk about wanting to do nonprofit and stuff for good, and like supply chains, like this kind of surprising, like, wow, first of all, you make a salary, right? You make a living, which is always a good thing,
Yes.
but you're
Yes.
doing good. You're helping. How do you make more efficient, more faster? How do you reach different places and provide like a social good that people need, right? How do you kind of move stuff along? I mean, it's a fascinating thing, and like you said, it is still altruistic. It's still like a good thing, and like you get to talk to like you really working some awesome things, man. I love it. I love everything you bring it to the table with this dude. Um, I guess that's kind of wrap up. I mean, unless you got anything else that you kind of want to talk right before we wrap, but is there like anything else top of mind? I mean, especially as kind of an international student, what do you wish that maybe you experience like, hey, this is what I love for people to understand, like as an international supply chain, what the difference could be than working domestically. And I probably just butchered that question because you're like, I don't know, dude. I'm just reading. Uh, I don't know. I'm very excited talking to you. I mean, is there any other advice you'd want to give before we wrap, or is that it?
So like I had this like I had this viewpoint about the current supply chain people in the current supply chain setup. Like supply chain right now is like we do the all the work. That is the we do all the activities behind the scenes. We manage the flow. We manage the daily activities. But when it comes to communicating or earning a seat at the table, supply chain people lack in that particular respect, and therefore like acquiring the communication, having the communication skills, the presentation skills, and like translating whatever process inputs you have into financial figures, capturing the attention of the top management and getting will help you fetch a seat at the CEO table. So we have this great leader, Tim Cook, who is in fact was the first the Lord handling the supply chain for Apple, and right now he got into the CEO role. So like there is the light at the end of the tunnel, but like we as supply chain guys, we need to like focus on more glitzy side of the thing. We need to make a brand for ourselves. We need to tell more that like supply chain is something that is very much essential or the core of a business. We are in fact giving you a competitive advantage. It's no longer a necessary evil, but it's something that will help you sustain in this today's world. So like that is what I want to communicate to the supply chain community, that like speak for yourself, speak for the community, and like spread the word.
Take some communication classes. It may be dumb, but it could be helpful. I love it, dude. I love every all the energy and all that stuff. And you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, like even though the supply chain makes so much sense, and like all of us have gotten to experience what happens when there's failure in the supply chain, especially this past previous year, it's still you need to communicate it. You need to communicate it in the way that the senior level, the C-suite is going to understand, which is incredibly valuable. As much passion as you can have, you still need to make it make sense for them. So I love it, dude. Dhairya, how do you want people to get in touch with you? Where can they reach out to you, especially when you come into Atlanta? I mean, we're more of a US based podcast, but what's the best way to kind of reach out to you and get to connect with you, man? I mean, you've probably already connected with most people who are listening to this, but for the few that you haven't connected with, what should they do?
So people can connect me with LinkedIn. They can shoot up a message, and like I will be available to guide anyone or like to discuss the supply chain things. Like it will be like particularly I mentioned in my LinkedIn bio that like open to interactions. Like I like to interact with diverse people and understand their viewpoints. So you feel free to connect me, send a request via LinkedIn.
Absolutely, dude. And we'll include a link to that in the show notes. So, sorry, I mean, thank you so much for joining me. I apologize for all the ways I talked over you, how I butchered your name, and also because I kept you up past 11 on a Saturday night, because I know that the last thing you want to do is talk to a bearded Massachusetts white guy in America for your Saturday night party. So hopefully, as you're a supply chain under 30, you get to go enjoy the night a little bit and have a great day, man.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. See you later. Absolutely.
And that's our show. Are you a supply chain professional under the age of 30 interested in talking about your journey? Let me know in the comment section and I'll be sure to have you on the show. In the meantime, subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching Consulting Logistics. I'm Comic Knot. Rock and roll.